We're reading All Things Even Frisky. Frisky got lost, and in the last chapter he was found. Yay! And Aunt Kate even paid the $10 bill at the pound. Now we are on chapter 11, More Trouble Ahead. Uh-oh. One day, Aunt Kate picked Billy up after school on her way home from town. Billy jumped into the car, then stared at his aunt. Her hair. It was different. Pretty and puffy like Mother's used to be. "Your hair looks pretty, Aunt Kate," he said. Aunt Kate laughed. She'd been smiling and laughing a lot lately. Billy had too. Frisky had been found and Daddy was coming home tomorrow. "There's Mrs. Parker ringing our front doorbell," remarked Aunt Kate as she drove the car into the driveway. "And she has her 2 children with her. Billy, you bring in the packages and I'll let her in." Billy came in just in time to hear a woman's high-pitched voice saying, "Oh, a nasty dog! Get down! Get away from me!" Then a baby began to cry. Aunt Kate came shooing Frisky in front of her. "Put him in the basement while they're here," she said quietly. "They probably won't stay long." Frisky put his tail between his legs and slunk down the stairs after his master. "Poor Frisky," said Billy, giving him a pat. "You didn't mean anything, but some ladies are funny about dogs." He felt as if he should stay with Frisky to cheer him up, but something made him want to go upstairs and hear what the new neighbor was saying. At the living room door, he stopped short. "A dog is a terrible nuisance. At the last place we lived, the neighbors signed a petition for a no-dog neighborhood. We all had such lovely yards and didn't want to worry about our flower beds being dug up. Now Jimmy is old enough to play outside alone, and I certainly wouldn't want him frightened or bitten by a dog." Billy had a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. Mechanically, he listened to Aunt Kate's answer. "Billy's dog wouldn't bite anyone, Mrs. Parker. You don't need to worry about your flowers either. Billy will keep him out of your yard." She paused. "I'm glad you like the cookies I sent over. Could I make you a cup of tea?" "No, thank you," came the answer. "I must get home and start supper. My husband comes home early, but I did want to return your plate." "Well, do come again when you can stay a while," said Aunt Kate, following the woman and her children to the front door. Billy poked his head around the corner and peered after them. What a cranky neighbor. Just when Aunt Kate was beginning to like Frisky, a neighbor like that had to move in. Billy had an uneasy feeling that there was trouble ahead for Frisky. Just then, Pete came pedaling down the street on his bike. Billy ran to talk to him. He could tell by the look in Pete's eyes that he was up to something. "How about going to the deserted house with me tomorrow?" he asked in a low voice. That scared feeling came over Billy again, starting at the top of his head and going down into his toes. He just didn't feel ready for meeting with Old Man Hitchcock's ghost. Suddenly, he remembered something. "My dad's coming home tomorrow, so I can't. I haven't seen him for a long time." "You don't want to go," accused Pete. "Yes, I do," answered Billy quickly. "You're scared." "I'm not either." Billy hated having anyone think he was scared, especially Pete. He had to prove to Pete he was as brave as he was. "School's out next Friday. Why don't we go then?" "Friday?" Pete screwed up his face thoughtfully, as if he were an important person who had lots of business to attend to on Fridays. Billy waited tensely, almost hoping he'd say he was too busy. "Friday is okay, I guess," Pete said. "See ya," and he pedaled away. Billy looked over his shoulder as he ran into the house. He had that queer feeling that a ghost was chasing him. Silly, he told himself. Ghosts come out only at night. But hadn't Sid McClellan seen Old Man Hitchcock's ghost in the daytime? Billy closed the door behind him and shivered a little. Frisky came bounding up to him, begging to play. Billy forgot about ghosts and deserted houses as he ran to the basement with his pup at his heels. Next Friday was a whole week away. Lots of things could change before then. He threw the ball, and Frisky chased it. Chapter 12, Flower Beds and Babies. "Daddy!" shrieked Billy, running out of the house and flinging himself into his father's arms. Billy didn't realize how much he had missed his father until he felt his strong arms around him. Aunt Kate came out too to join in the happy reunion. Billy noticed she had on a pretty blue dress and her hair was soft and fluffy around her face. "I'll help you with your suitcases, Daddy," offered Billy, then stopped short. Frisky had bounded out of the house unnoticed and was nosing around in Mrs. Parker's flower beds. The little Parker boy was out playing in the yard watching Frisky. Billy dropped Dad's suitcase and ran, but he was too late. An angry Mrs. Parker reached Frisky first. "Running my flowers," she sputtered. "Get that pesky dog out of my yard and away from my child." Raising her foot, she gave Frisky a kick. He ran yelping home with an indignant Billy running after him. Gathering the trembling pup into his arms, Billy tried to soothe him. "Don't cry, Frisky. She's mean, but I won't let her kick you again. You have to stay out of her yard. She'll call the dog catcher and—" Billy felt so sad that he couldn't finish the sentence. Dad twirled his mustache thoughtfully when Billy told him about it. We'll have to get a long chain for Frisky," he said. "Of course, he wants to run outside every chance he gets in this nice weather. We'll chain him to the clothesline, and Mrs. Parker won't have a thing to be cross about. Tomorrow morning, I'll pick up a chain when I go to town." "I'm so glad you're home, Daddy," said Billy, throwing his arms around his father's neck. "So am I, son," answered Dad. "I'm getting tired of being away from you so much. I may have a chance to get a job with my company right here in Burlingham. How would you like that?" "I'd like that fine, Daddy," answered Billy. Then he thought of something. If Dad got a job in Burlingham like he had before, Aunt Kate wouldn't need to stay with him anymore. Suddenly, Billy knew that he wanted Aunt Kate to stay with them, almost as much as he wanted Dad not to go away on trips. He looked across the room at her. She had such a happy smile on her face. Do you suppose she was happy because maybe she wouldn't have to take care of Billy and Frisky much longer? Thinking about that made Billy feel a little sad. The next day, Dad fixed up the chain for Frisky. At first, Frisky didn't like being tied up, but soon he found out he could run a long way if he pulled the chain along the clothesline. He had fun chasing butterflies, growling at birds, and just lying in the warm May sunshine. When Billy came home from school, he untied Frisky and let him run freely around the yard for a while under his watchful eye. Jimmy Parker learned to love Frisky too. Every time he came outside to play, he would toddle over to Billy's yard to pet the pup. Frisky seemed to know he must be gentle with the little fellow. He ran in circles and barked to make him laugh. He licked the boy's hands and sometimes his face, but he never tried to bite. Mrs. Parker didn't want Jimmy playing with Frisky. "Think of all the germs he's picking up," she said when Billy went over to say he was sorry Frisky had played in her flower beds. "What if he gets bitten? I think we should rid the neighborhood of these pesky dogs. I just can't keep Jimmy away from them." "Maybe you could put up a fence," suggested Billy. "We can't afford to put up a fence," retorted the woman. "Fences cost more than you think. Besides, your dog's barking bothers me. He even wakes up my baby sometimes." Billy's heart sank. He talked to Aunt Kate about it, but she didn't know what to do. Even Uncle John had no solution this time. He told Billy to pray about it and to remember the verse. Hadn't it worked before? Yes, Billy had to agree. Even losing Frisky had worked out for the best. He had found out what Aunt Kate was really like, and Aunt Kate had seemed to change her mind about Frisky around that time too. "We know that all things work together for good to them that love God," he repeated as he threw a stick for Frisky to run after. Anyway, school was out tomorrow, and that was a good thing. Maybe if he was home all the time, he could watch Frisky better and keep him from being a nuisance to Mrs. Parker. At least, he would try. We'll stop there. Tune in next time for Chapter 13.